Good evening and welcome to The Right Side, the show where we talk about today's news, views, and opinions from an admittedly conservative perspective. I'm your host, Chris Pareja, and as you know, if you watch the show regularly, we are extremely grateful to the Conservative Forum of Silicon Valley for helping to underwrite the show. And tonight we have the current president, Jerry Mungai, to give us an update of the things that are happening at the forum, as well as to let us know a little bit about him, because we haven't had a chance to really get to know Jerry on the air. So Jerry, welcome to the show and thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And so, first order of business, we like to know a little bit about who we're talking to here. Tell us a little bit about Jerry. How long have you been involved with the forum?
I've been affiliated with the forum since 2009.
Okay.
And checked out one of the meetings and said I didn't have time, was too far away, whatever. But then a year went by. This was in 2008. I said, got to be part of this. Mm-hmm. So I joined and volunteered to work and do some grunt work, whatever. And then Jack Mallory, one of the co-founders, asked if I would take on the role as vice president of programs. And it was a rather daunting task. So from there, I had that job for a couple of years, then became the executive vice president, and this year, president.
Right. And so you were actually president in training for the last year or so, though,
yes, right?
So you got in right away and volunteered and began to help shape the organization.
Well, I played a role. Yeah. I like to think so.
You know, we've talked to Richard in the past and Howard in the past, and we know Richard helped found it. But one of the things that hasn't come up is that whole ability to volunteer and to help get the conservative message out and to help people understand that it's not as abnormal as they might think.
Exactly.
And so, but normally people don't just come to the forum and then end up deciding they're conservative or that they need to get active in something. They come because they're already active in something else.
That's true.
And we had a little bit of a chance to, even though we've been around each other for the last couple of years, I got to know a little bit more about you before the show, and you didn't just start out being conservative at the forum. You were active and out in the community before that.
Yes,
Tell us a little
was.
bit about that.
Yes, I've been conservative for a long time, and I was very upset one day when I was reading the newspaper, letters to the editor or something or other, and I said, this person is just way off base. And so my wife said, well, why don't you write a letter to the editor? I said, me write a letter? I don't think so. And I thought about it. I said, yeah, I think I will. And lo and behold, it got published. So from that point, I decided to speak out. And I figured, well, what the heck? See what happens. And so I started writing letters to the editor at the Mercury News and a couple other local newspapers, community newspapers, and also Investors Business Daily.
So you started going onto a bigger stage.
Yeah. So I was reading the newspaper one day. I said, I really agree with this person. I said, by golly, it's the letter I wrote, because it takes time for them to decide what they want to publish and not publish. And my mind went on to something else. Right. And then it's
a good thing you still agreed with yourself after, because some of the things I've written in the past, like, whoa, where did that come from?
Exactly. And then I joined, got interested in a community association, and was asked to be a board member, so I did that, and then I was a vice president, and I was president of that group. And part of that, when I was very active at that time, I was also would go to local school board meetings to see what was going on there, and some of the things that were going on there I didn't approve of, so I figured, well, why not? I'm going to get up and say a few words.
I'm starting to identify a trend of you'll see things. If it starts to bother you, you'll speak out.
Well, I want to get a lay of the land and be sure I know what's going on to the extent that I can. Mm-hmm. And this there's a gal that in my neighborhood was also part of the local community association. She and I would go to City Hall during their council meetings and say a few words about that. And would get the notice of the Mercury News, so when they reported the events of the day, they would sometimes comment that what we had to say.
And just out of curiosity, what were some of the topics that prompted you over that edge to look for that outlet for communication or even public accountability?
I guess it's fiscal responsibility is one of them. I think also some of the social services that are provided bother me because I feel that they really harm the person who's receiving these services. It just doesn't encourage them to be independent and become dependent upon government. And those services can and do end. And so one should be aware of that and try to be independent.
Okay. So back to the topic of volunteerism at the forum. Can you tell us a little bit about the different types of volunteer roles there are, if people have particular skills that might be of benefit to the group?
Funny you should ask. That's one of the things that I'm trying to work on this year, is because we've grown in 10 years, initial membership of 20. In 10 years, well, last year we ended up with 640. That's a dramatic increase.
Yeah.
And so we are now having growing pains, and the organizational model that we had in the past just isn't working as well as we'd like it to be. So we have a membership committee, and they start out looking for members, advertising, and keeping track of members so that they can get the message out of upcoming events and that sort of thing. We have people who work with the website, keep it current to the extent possible, and we also have a key role is the vice president programs, and we try to upgrade the quality of our speakers, and I think we've done that over the last several years, and that helps attract attendees to our events. We have a treasurer who's got her hands full because she's new to the job and learning the accounting systems that we have, and to come up with reports that we would like to see rather than just cash in, cash out, right, balance left in bank, whatever. So to get some financial reporting in place. And then we want some backup people for that. We have a couple people working on the audio aspect of our meetings, so they would set up the audio mics and on the stage and in the back when we have people who want to give questions to our speakers. We have a videographer and a backup. So we have quite a few.
Signage as well?
Pardon?
And signage that's
yes,
professionally produced, and there's an opening for someone who can help with producing that.
That's correct. This person has moved to San Francisco, and it's really kind of difficult for him. So we are looking for somebody to take over that role. Very important role. Absolutely. They all are, and they're all dedicated volunteers. Which, right. Yeah, they're all really dedicated. And we also have, I can't even think of all the roles that people have. People involved with when we have our special events, and we allow our premium members to have cocktails and hors d'oeuvres with the speaker. We have some women who work their tails off and come up with these exotic hors d'oeuvres, a beautiful display of food. Gosh, it would make some of these hotels envious. And then we have another person who gets food and drink for our regular meetings. Mm-hmm. So,
but they're really for people who haven't been, to accommodate 300 to 500 people in many cases. Yeah. It takes a team to make that happen, and it is awesome the volunteerism that exists within the group.
In what we're doing, we're now what I'm asking them to do is we need to know what we want. So we need to know the type of position we want. What do we need? Because you just can't ask for volunteers.
Right.
You got to know what you want. So we're trying to identify, because everybody has it in their head, what needs to be done. We got to put it on paper. So we want to know, I want to know, what positions do we need? What will those people do? What skill sets are we looking for? That kind of thing. So when we ask for volunteers, we can give them some direction. And we want to create a web page that will be volunteerism or whatever. If you want to help the forum, here's some ways that you can help.
Well, and that's great. So the forum is known for, the primary thing it's known for is the speaker series.
Yes.
They underwrite this show.
Right.
There are a number of other things that the forum is involved in, though.
Yes, we work closely with the Tea Party Patriots, for example, and many of our members are members of that group. And we've gone to the Tea Party April 15th Tax Day demonstrations, or I shouldn't say demonstrations, but
they really are parties in most cases.
Yeah, they really
speakers.
are. And showing people that there's a different side of these various issues. We have a lot of volunteers that work on an organization called Voter Integrity, who we want to ensure that the voters' rolls are legal and correct.
I saw election integrity volunteers at my own polling place this morning.
Good. And so they're busy during the year getting voter registration information and checking it out to see whether these people are really legally enrolled. And which is, by the way, a reason we recently changed our meeting night, which is currently the first Tuesday of every month. And we're going to change it to the second Tuesday in November. And that was a primary reason, is because a lot of our dedicated volunteers can't come and hear our speakers because they're at polling places. So we mulled over that for a bit and decided we're going to do that. So we're going to start that in November.
But also in July, we usually have the second meeting.
That would be right.
The second Tuesday of the month because of 4th of July holiday.
Right. And that was another reason. We were already make these different exceptions, and so and these volunteers were really disappointed. For example, in November when we had Jim DeMint, and we had 500 people or close to it. They were disappointed because that was election night in some cases, in some communities. So that was really what really gave the impetus to say, we got to change this. Anyway, that's something that we do.
But that almost makes it sound like you care about what the members think and that you're providing value to them. That's crazy talk. Aren't you just supposed to give the collective the instruction and help them just comply with it?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Volunteerism is the way we want to go. Yeah. We want to incentivize them to further the cause of freedom. We have this writers group. One person checks all the various newspapers to see who wrote what and gives a report and checks to see how many, puts a report out at the end of the month. Here are all the letters of the editor that were in the newspapers. Some of them are members of the forum and others are not, to show the ratio between liberal versus conservative. Hasn't changed that much. We're still a little behind. We have...
It's changed since the beginning, just maybe less recently. You're saying there's not as much of a flow. I know Richard gave us stats in the beginning of what it used to be like 8-1, and then it got a little bit closer to...
We also went to, a couple years ago, had a meeting with the editorial staff of the San Jose Mercury News, and we said we wanted to give our views on their editorial pages, whether it was the editorials, the op-eds, and the letters and the cartoons. So I suggested that I was missing Victor Davis Hanson from Hoover Institution, and they remarked at that time, we have him. He's in that syndicate that we pull out op-eds, and we'll do that again. Well, they did. It's not as frequent as I'd like, but nevertheless. And I also suggested that for a change, it'd be nice to have a conservative cartoonist like Michael Ramirez,
who we've had on the show,
who we've had on our program last December. And when I mentioned that he won 2 Pulitzer Prizes for political cartoons, their ears perked up. Mm-hmm. So we made some progress there. We knew who they were and got some advice and counsel what conservatives need to do to get their point across. And we've offered op-eds, not frequently, but they've published them.
Okay.
And then we also had last year, actually it was this year, we had a meeting, an event called Issues That Unite, because we were concerned that the conservative message wasn't really being heard in some of the minority neighborhoods and communities. So we organized an event that where we had 2 individuals from the Leadership Institute in Washington, D.C. to come out and to help us get that message of freedom and liberty to these minority communities, mm-hmm. And to find ways to do that. So we do more than just...
and there's the high school scholarships.
The high school scholarship, that's right. In fact, we're going to make the presentation tonight for one of them. We have 2 winners this year, and the one that we're going to present, his oversized check, is from St. Francis High School, and he's going to UC Berkeley in the fall. And the other individual is from San Jose, the Evergreen Valley High School. She's going to be going to UC Riverside, but unfortunately she couldn't make it tonight. Mm. So, and we have another set of volunteers that volunteer their time to read all these essays that are submitted. And we send out the invitation, by the way, to many schools, private as well as public, in Santa Clara County. And these people read the essays and give their opinions on them and call them until we come up with the 2 winners.
And then what kind of scholarship is given?
$1,000 scholarship.
For each of them?
To each of them, that's correct.
So and that almost makes it sound like conservatives care about education and are willing to help fund it. That's crazy. Isn't that the government's job? Should we be getting involved in that kind of thing as private citizens?
It's our money, so we should have a say in it. And yes, that's another you just reminded we had last year. Yes, we had an education forum. Were you at that?
And we had guests here on the show from the forum.
That's right, including, who was not a guest here, the president of the California Teachers Association. And folks were bowled over when I told them that he agreed to come. So, and we had 4 people give their different views on that, including one gal, Gloria Romero,
who was on the show.
She was on the show. That's right. And so she's now with the Democrats for Education Reform. Right. So we just feel that a lot of us feel that there are improvements that can be made, and primarily one of the things that she has implemented, which is the parents can, a majority of the parents vote to have changes. Yeah. That can be done, but we also need, a lot of us believe, and I do, we need vouchers so that the parents can choose the school that they would be best for their kids. And I might add that it concerned me that we hear about how little that a lot of these parents have for their children's education. It just troubled me. That how can this be? And I've concluded, I don't have the proof, but I conclude it's because a lot of these families are stuck with the schools that are in their geographical area. And if they had a say in their kids' education, i.e. they had a choice, they would have an increased interest in their children's education and awareness of how their kids are being shortchanged.
Well, but not only that, one statement that she made that has impacted me ever since is that if you look at our education system, it's the only thing that you're locked into based on your geography.
Yep.
And so if you and I wanted to go to a different restaurant, we can go to a restaurant anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world.
Yes.
If we wanted to go to a shopping mall, same issue. If we wanted to go visit family members, whatever we want to do, we can do. But if we want to go somewhere for better education than we can get in our neighborhood, that's called stealing. And people can be prosecuted for trying to do better for their children.
Amazing, isn't it?
It is. And so those are the kinds of things that unite. Education unites across the liberal or conservative spectrum. And you talked about, creating jobs in the community and everything else. I mean, those are the things that unite, and those are the things that we should be working toward common solutions on. It's good to see that the forum is. And so one thing I just wanted to, we only have a few minutes left. There are a lot of speakers that have come through the forum in the last year. I know that many of them, you were originally involved in helping to book and get ready, and now there's a new group coming through and coordinating the speakers and that kind of thing. What have been your favorite one or two speakers over the last year, or most memorable ones?
Wow, they're all so good. I think that Kevin Jackson was a good guy. He's from Southern California. He's from Missouri. He's a black conservative, and we had him come speak last year for Black History Month because I wanted a counter punch to the liberal, constant liberal views that the blacks are mistreated have been and continue to be mistreated by our nation. I'm also proud of the joint meetings we've had with Hillsdale College, the only college that doesn't accept any kind of government aid. We've had that for 4 years. Getting Victor Davis Hanson was good. I had a minor role in getting Jim DeMint, but he was really spectacular. Gosh, I don't know. They're all. We
Sheriff Joe Arpaio last month.
Yes.
And Bill Whittle has been was a great one for me as well.
Yes, he was good. And even we had Robert Spencer, if you remember.
From Jihad Watch.
From Jihad Watch, yes. He evoked some confrontation, which is good. I mean, that's fine. We want to get our name out and show who we are and try to convince, or not convince, but at least offer an alternative to the standard view which is prevalent here in the Valley in so many ways.
The reality is that all of the things that we're not supposed to talk about, religion, politics, money, are all the things that we need to talk about as a society. And the Conservative Forum does add that counterpoint for which people can be angry or in agreement or whatever, but if we're not talking about it, we're not going anywhere.
Well, as I tell my kids, I like to hear an alternative view because it either educates me or validates my beliefs already. So you either learn something either way.
Right.
You learn another view, or you are, I can't think of the right word right now, but it validates your earlier views.
Sure. Well, this is the point where we normally ask guests, because we don't know any better, how can people find out more about the forum? But the reality is, we'll be talking about theconservativeforum.com in just a moment. I want to thank you for joining us for a little bit of an update on the forum and getting to know you a little bit better. But if you hold on for just a second, we'll be back with a word from our underwriter, coincidentally, the Conservative Forum.
Funny how that works, huh?
The Conservative Forum of Silicon Valley began with 20 conservatives meeting at a restaurant in November of 2003. Our mission is to promote the principles of American liberty through education. By 2012, we had grown to over 600 paid members. Our monthly meetings feature well-known and prestigious conservative speakers addressing issues that are critical to our country's very survival. This includes speakers like Victor Davis Hanson, Andrew Breitbart, David Horowitz, and many others. In addition to our monthly meetings, we sponsor a conservative local cable access TV show, The Right Side, covering today's topics. Our Constitution discussion group not only teaches the Constitution, but started our annual essay contest that awards 2 $1,000 scholarships to local high school seniors. We are a virtual clearinghouse for grassroots organizations by providing them with table space at no charge in our exhibit area. There are typically a dozen groups represented. If you are like-minded, join us at our next meeting and become motivated and empowered. Liberty, made in America.
Are you kidding me? You were fine.
Here we go.
And welcome back to The Right Side. Again, I'm your host, Chris Pareja, and we've been joined this evening by Jerry Mungai of the Conservative Forum. And as I normally say at this point in the show, the Conservative Forum, although they underwrite our show, that's not what they're best known for. It is the speaker series, and we talked a little bit about that this evening. Just wanted to give you a preview of some of the people that are coming up soon. On July 8th, Trevor Loudon will be coming. He's the author of The Enemies Within. And in August, we're looking at Gun Owners of America. They'll be talking about the Second Amendment. September 2nd will be Mark Mix, President of National Right to Work. And in October, on the 7th, Pam Geller, blogger and commentator on Islam, will definitely be drawing attention to the forum, I'm sure. This evening, Noni Darwish will be speaking at the forum. And we'll get into a little bit more details of the hows and wheres. But you also wanted to share a little bit with us, Jerry, about one of the guests you're most excited about that's coming in the near future, and that is?
That's Colonel Allen West of Florida. He was a former congressman, and he's going to be quite a draw. He's been very popular with Tea Party goers, as well as, and he's on TV a lot, on Fox News, of course.
Yes.
And so we're very excited about that. And when we announced he was coming last month, a lot of our members were very excited about that. So we're really pleased about that.
I actually heard him on the radio in the way in, and he was talking about the recent, what's being termed as the prisoner of war swap, and about the gentleman that seems to have deserted his post.
It appears to be that way, yes.
And
he left his post.
But not just left specifically to join the Taliban, and then was traded for 5 Taliban senior officials.
Not 5 flunkies either.
No, these are top-of-the-line guys.
Yes.
And so if people want to learn more about the forum, obviously they can go to theconservativeforum.com, but the meetings happen at 7 o'clock, first Tuesday of each month at 432 Sterling Road.
That's correct.
The IFES Portuguese Hall, about 3 minutes from here in Mountain View, right?
Absolutely.
Well, we'd like to thank you all. Again, thank you, Jerry, but thank you in the audience for joining us this evening. And we invite you to engage us, to talk to us a bit. And you can do that through email at rightsidetv@gmail.com, or you can often find us roaming around at the Conservative Forum meetings as well, again at 432 Sterling Road in Mountain View. Thanks for joining us this evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in person or on the show sometime soon. I've been your host, Chris Pareja. Thanks for joining us.